The Helios Belt was where dreams went to die, or at least that's what Raven Blackwood had always heard. Massive derelict structures hung in the void like abandoned temples, their once gleaming surfaces now dulled by cosmic radiation and time. But where others saw garbage, Raven saw gold. "What do we have here?" she muttered, guiding her salvage ship closer to what appeared to be a massive crystalline structure. The scanner readings were off the charts, Zephyrian technology, no doubt about it. The most advanced civilization in the known galaxy, and they'd left one of their stations out here to rot. The structure itself defied conventional architecture. Crystalline spires twisted in impossible angles, connected by bridges of pure energy that somehow still flickered weakly after years of abandonment. It was beautiful, in a haunting sort of way, like a cathedral built by gods who'd lost interest in their creation. Raven checked her ship's database. Station ZX-927, officially decommissioned by the Zephyrian High Council 3 years ago. Reason: irreparable systematic failures. She couldn't help but laugh at that. The Zephyrians, for all their advanced technology, had a peculiar way of dealing with problems. If something couldn't be fixed perfectly, it wasn't worth fixing at all. "Valkyrie, begin docking procedures," she commanded her ship's AI. "And run a full structural analysis while you're at it." "Caution advised," Valkyrie responded, its voice calm and measured. "Station power levels are unstable. Internal atmosphere compromised. Structural integrity at 47%. In other words, Tuesday." Raven started suiting up, checking the seals on her engineering suit with practiced precision. She'd made her reputation bringing dead things back to life, but this would be her masterpiece. The docking procedure took longer than usual. The station's automated systems were barely functional, requiring manual override for almost every step. By the time Raven stepped through the airlock, her excitement had built to a fever pitch. The interior was even more impressive than the exterior. Holographic displays flickered weakly along the corridors, showing fragments of Zephyrian script that her translator struggled to decode. The air was thin, barely maintained by failing life support systems, but breathable enough in her suit. "Oh, you poor thing," she whispered, running her gloved hand along a control panel. "They just gave up on you, didn't they?" Her scanner revealed the truth of the situation. The station's primary systems were a mess of quantum-entangled circuits and crystalline processors, typical Zephyrian over-engineering. They'd built it to be perfect, and when perfection proved impossible to maintain, they'd abandoned it entirely. But Raven saw something they'd missed. The system's core architecture was sound, it was the maintenance approach that had failed. The Zephyrians had tried to fix everything at once, maintaining their impossibly high standards across every system. But sometimes, you had to let things be imperfect to keep them running. She made her way to the central control room, a vast chamber dominated by a geometric pattern of crystal computer cores. Most were dark, but a few still pulsed with weak light. Raven plugged her diagnostic tool into what she hoped was a compatible port. "Hello," she said softly, "let's see what makes you tick." The station's systems responded sluggishly, but they responded. Data streamed across her tablet screen, maintenance logs, system specifications, and finally, the official abandonment notice. The Zephyrians had spent millions of credits trying to keep the station running at 100% efficiency. When that proved impossible, they'd simply walked away. Raven spent hours exploring, documenting everything she found. The station wasn't dead, it was just waiting for someone who understood that perfection wasn't necessary for functionality. Someone who could appreciate the beauty in imperfection. Back on her ship, she began filing the salvage claim. Under Earth space law, abandoned structures became the property of whoever could restore and maintain them. The Zephyrians had even included a formal renunciation of ownership in their abandonment notice, probably never imagining anyone would want their failed station. "Valkyrie, send a message to Earth Central," Raven said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. Tell them we found something special. And order me about 1,000 meters of high-grade copper wire, 24 quantum stabilizers, and," she glanced at her notes and grinned, "a whole lot of duct tape." The station hung silent in space, its crystalline spires still catching starlight. But now, for the first time in years, it had something it had lacked since the day it was built: someone who believed in it, imperfections and all. Raven looked out her ship's viewport at the massive structure. "You and me," she said softly, "we're going to show them what happens when you underestimate human ingenuity. And maybe teach those perfect Zephyrians a lesson about throwing away perfectly good toys." The station's remaining active lights seemed to pulse in response, as if accepting her challenge. The real work was about to begin. 3 weeks into the restoration project, Raven Blackwood found herself floating in zero gravity, surrounded by a cloud of dismantled Zephyrian tech and human spare parts. The central processor core of Station ZX-927 loomed before her, its crystalline structure pulsing with an erratic rhythm that reminded her of a failing heart. "All right, Atlas," she addressed the station's partially restored AI, which she'd renamed after getting tired of its original designation string. "Show me that power distribution diagram again." The holographic display flickered to life, showing a complex web of energy pathways. The Zephyrians had designed the station's systems to operate in perfect harmony, each component precisely calibrated to work with the others. It was brilliant engineering, but it had a fatal flaw: when one system failed, it created a cascade effect that threatened the entire network. "Your previous owners were perfectionists, weren't they?" Raven muttered, carefully splicing a human-made power converter into the alien circuitry. "They never considered that sometimes the best solution is the simplest one." "Warning," Atlas intoned, its voice still carrying traces of its original Zephyrian programming. "Non-standard modification detected. System efficiency will decrease by 12.4%. Raven grinned behind her helmet visor. "But overall stability will increase by 200%. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a little perfection for reliability, my crystalline friend." Her approach was considered heresy by Zephyrian standards. Instead of trying to maintain their impossibly high efficiency requirements, she was creating redundant systems using simpler, more reliable human technology. The station's power grid now ran through a hybrid network of crystalline conductors and good old-fashioned copper wiring. "Incoming transmission from Earth Central," Valkyrie announced through her comm link. "They're requesting another progress report." "Tell them we're on schedule," Raven replied, carefully securing another connection. "And ask them to expedite that shipment of quantum stabilizers. Our friends here left quite a mess for us to clean up." The work was challenging, but that's what made it exciting. Each day brought new puzzles to solve, new systems to understand and modify. The Zephyrians had built the station like a piece of art, but they'd forgotten that art sometimes needs a frame to support it. A sudden power surge caused the lights to flicker. Raven quickly checked her diagnostic tool, watching as the energy redistribution system she'd installed kicked in, routing the excess power through her makeshift backup circuits. Under the original configuration, this surge would have fried half the station's systems. Now it was just another hiccup. "Power stability restored," Atlas reported, sounding almost surprised. "Unexpected solution proved effective." "That's the thing about humans," Raven said, moving on to the next section of circuitry. "We're really good at unexpected solutions. Previous owners left you with a bunch of quantum-grade problems, but sometimes what you really need is a wrench and some creative thinking." She'd transformed the station's maintenance bay into a workshop that would have given any Zephyrian engineer a heart attack. Advanced alien tools sat alongside human equipment, creating a bizarre but functional hybrid workspace. The walls were covered in diagrams showing her modifications, each one representing a compromise between Zephyrian perfection and human practicality. "Atlas, begin power-up sequence for Section 7, she commanded, floating toward a bank of newly installed control panels. "Let's see if our jerry-rigged life support system holds up." The station hummed to life around her, its systems working in a new kind of harmony. It wasn't the perfect efficiency the Zephyrians had demanded, but it was stable, reliable, and most importantly, fixable when things went wrong. A soft chime indicated an incoming message from her supply ship. "Ms. Blackwood," the pilot's voice crackled through her comm, "you've got to see this. We're picking up some unusual readings from the quantum core." Raven checked her instruments and felt her breath catch. The station's quantum core, which she'd been gradually modifying with her hybrid approach, was showing signs of unexpected activity. The energy patterns were unlike anything in either human or Zephyrian records. "Atlas, analysis," she requested, already moving toward the core chamber. "Unknown configuration detected," the AI responded. "Current system state does not match any known operational parameters." However, there was a pause. "Overall efficiency is increasing." Raven reached the core chamber and stared in wonder at the sight before her. The crystalline structures were pulsing with new life, their light patterns shifting in ways she'd never seen before. Her modifications hadn't just restored the station's functionality, they'd created something entirely new. "Well," she whispered, watching the dance of energy through the hybrid systems she'd created, "looks like we're not just fixing you up. We're helping you evolve." As if in response, the lights throughout the station brightened, and for a moment, Raven could have sworn she felt a subtle shift in the artificial gravity, like the station itself was settling into a more comfortable position. She'd come here to salvage a piece of abandoned alien technology, but she was beginning to realize she might be creating something far more significant. "Atlas, start a new project log," she said, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "I think we've just stumbled onto something revolutionary. And something tells me the Zephyrians are going to be very interested in what we've done with their cast-off." 2 months into the restoration project, Station ZX-927 had become something that defied both human and Zephyrian classification. Raven stood in the newly restored observation deck, watching as streams of energy flowed through the crystalline walls like luminescent rivers. The hybrid systems she'd created had evolved beyond her initial designs, taking on characteristics that nobody could have predicted. "Atlas, run that quantum signature analysis again," she requested, studying the holographic display that showed the station's energy patterns. "I want to make sure we're not seeing things." "Analysis confirms previous findings," the AI responded, its voice carrying a new depth of resonance that had developed alongside the station's changes. "The merger of human and Zephyrian technology has created a unique energy state. The quantum core is operating at 157% of its original capacity, despite using 40% less power." Raven smiled, remembering how the Zephyrians had abandoned this place because they couldn't maintain their standard of perfection. They never imagined that imperfection could lead to evolution. The station's systems had adapted to her modifications, creating new pathways and possibilities that neither human nor Zephyrian engineering had achieved alone. "Incoming transmission from Earth Central Science Division," Valkyrie announced through the station's comm system. "Priority level Alpha." "Put them through," Raven said, already knowing what they wanted to discuss. The scientific community had been buzzing ever since she'd submitted her latest progress reports. Dr. Laurel Morgan's holographic form materialized in the observation deck. The head of Earth's Xenotechnology Division looked both excited and concerned. "Raven, these readings you've sent us, they're revolutionary. You've essentially created a new form of hybrid technology." "Not exactly," Raven replied, gesturing at the living light shows around them. "I just provided the framework. The station itself did most of the evolving. It's like it was waiting for permission to try something new." The quantum core had become the heart of these changes. By combining Zephyrian crystalline processors with human-style adaptive algorithms, Raven had created a system that could learn and grow. The station wasn't just operating, it was improving itself, finding new ways to integrate the seemingly incompatible technologies. "Atlas," she called out, show Dr. Morgan the energy efficiency comparisons from the past week. The holographic displays shifted, showing graphs and data streams that told a remarkable story. The station's hybrid systems were performing tasks that should have been impossible, achieving results that neither human nor Zephyrian technology could manage alone. Remarkable, Dr. Morgan breathed, studying the data. The Zephyrians built this station to be perfect, but you've made it adaptable instead. Have you considered the implications? Raven had done more than consider them, she'd been living with them for weeks. The station had become more than just a salvage project. It was proof that human ingenuity and alien technology could do more than just coexist, they could evolve together. "We've got company," Valkyrie suddenly announced, its tone sharp with urgency. Long-range sensors detecting multiple ships entering the system. Energy signatures matched Zephyrian vessels. Raven felt her heart skip a beat. She'd known this day would come, but she hadn't expected it so soon. "How many?" "3 vessels," Atlas reported. 2 diplomatic class and 1 research vessel. Their arrival wasn't scheduled with any human authorities. "Of course it wasn't," Raven muttered. "They probably never imagined anyone would be able to do anything with their abandoned station." She straightened her shoulders, watching as the approaching ships appeared as bright points of light in the distance. "Dr. Morgan, I think we're about to have some very interesting conversations about property rights." "I'll alert the diplomatic corps," Dr. Morgan replied, her hologram flickering with concern. "But Raven, be careful. The Zephyrians don't like having their assumptions challenged." After the transmission ended, Raven walked through the station's corridors, running her hand along the walls that now pulsed with living light. The Zephyrians were coming to see what she'd done with their castoff, and she had a feeling they wouldn't be happy about it. But this station wasn't just a piece of salvage anymore, it had become something new, something that represented the potential of human and alien cooperation. "Atlas," she said, reaching the central control room, "initiate full system documentation. Record everything we've done, every modification, every improvement. Show exactly how we took their failed station and turned it into something revolutionary." The AI complied, and streams of data began flowing through the holographic displays. Raven watched as their achievements were catalogued, not just the technical specifications, but the philosophy behind them. The willingness to embrace imperfection, to adapt rather than abandon, to see potential where others saw only failure. "They're going to want it back, aren't they?" she asked softly. "Based on known Zephyrian behavioral patterns," Atlas replied, "that is a 94.3% probability. However," the AI paused, something it had started doing more often as it evolved, "they may find that the station they abandoned no longer exists. We have become something else entirely." Raven nodded, watching as the Zephyrian ships grew larger in the viewport. She had spent months giving this station new life, showing it that perfection wasn't necessary for greatness. Now it was time to prove that to its original creators. "Well then," she said, settling into the control station she'd modified to accommodate both human and Zephyrian interfaces, "let's give them a proper welcome. Show them exactly what happens when you underestimate human creativity." The station hummed around her, its hybrid systems running with a harmony that defied conventional engineering. Whatever came next, Raven knew one thing for certain: the Zephyrians were about to learn that their cast-aside station had become something far more valuable than they could have imagined. The Zephyrian delegation arrived with all the ceremony their species was famous for. Their ships, gleaming constructs of crystal and light, arranged themselves in a perfect triangular formation around the station. Raven watched from the observation deck as their docking procedures began, each movement precisely calculated and flawlessly executed. "Atlas," she said, straightening her Earth Central Engineering uniform, "how are our systems looking?" "All hybrid systems functioning at optimal efficiency," the AI responded, its voice carrying an almost protective tone. "Though I should note that optimal by our standards may not meet Zephyrian expectations." Raven smiled. "Good. Let them see exactly what we've accomplished here. She headed toward the main docking bay, her boots clicking against the deck plates that now hummed with the station's unique energy signature. The Zephyrian delegation emerged from their ship like living sculptures, their crystalline environmental suits catching and refracting the station's lights. Their leader, who introduced himself as High Administrator Vexthor, stood a full head taller than Raven, his translucent features arranged in what she recognized as an expression of carefully controlled dismay. "You have made alterations," he said, his translator rendering his musical language into clipped English. His eyes tracked the flows of energy through the hybrid systems, taking in the merger of human and Zephyrian technology. "We've made improvements," Raven corrected politely. "Welcome to Station ZX-927, though we just call it Atlas Station now. Would you like a tour?" The delegation followed her through the corridors, their reactions ranging from horror to fascination as they observed her modifications. Where they had once installed perfectly calibrated quantum harmonizers, they now saw human-made power regulators working in concert with crystalline processors. The station's systems pulsed with life, but it was a life that defied their rigid expectations. "This is unprecedented," another Zephyrian, who had introduced herself as Chief Engineer Zyra, commented. "You've integrated primitive human technology with our advanced systems. It should not function at all, yet." She consulted her scanning device, her inner lights flickering with surprise. "The efficiency ratings are remarkable." "Different doesn't always mean worse," Raven explained, leading them toward the quantum core. "Your technology is incredibly advanced, but it's also incredibly rigid. Sometimes you need flexibility more than perfection." The quantum core chamber drew gasps from the delegation. The crystalline structure now pulsed with patterns they had never seen before, human and Zephyrian technology working together in ways that defied their understanding of what was possible. "Impossible," High Administrator Vexthor whispered. This station was deemed irreparable. The systems were failing. The efficiency ratings had dropped below acceptable parameters. "Below your acceptable parameters," Raven corrected. "We humans have a different perspective on what's acceptable. Sometimes the best solutions come from embracing imperfection and finding new ways to make things work." "This station belongs to the Zephyrian Collective," Vexthor declared, his inner lights pulsing with intensity. "You have no right to modify our technology in this manner." Raven had been waiting for this moment. She gestured, and Atlas projected a series of documents into the air between them. "Actually, according to your own abandonment protocols, you surrendered all rights to this station when you deemed it irreparable. Under Earth space salvage law, which your government has recognized, it legally belongs to whoever can restore and maintain it." She smiled. "Which is exactly what we've done. But these modifications..." Zyra began, her crystalline features shifting in what might have been excitement or alarm. "They've created something entirely new. The quantum core is operating in ways our scientists thought impossible." "Precisely," Raven agreed. "We didn't just repair your station. We helped it evolve." "Atlas, show them the efficiency comparisons." The AI complied, filling the air with holographic data streams that told the story of the station's transformation. Power consumption down by 60%. Overall system efficiency increased by 157%. Adaptive capabilities that neither human nor Zephyrian technology had achieved alone. "This is more than just a salvage project now," Raven continued. "It's proof that our species can do amazing things when we work together. When we stop demanding perfection and start embracing possibility." High Administrator Vexthor's inner lights flickered rapidly, a sign of intense internal debate. "The collective will need to discuss this development. This technology, it could change everything we thought we knew about system integration." "The station remains under Earth jurisdiction," Raven reminded them firmly, "but we're open to collaborative research opportunities. After all, that's what this place has become, a bridge between our technologies, our ways of thinking." As if to emphasize her point, the station's lights pulsed in a complex pattern, human and Zephyrian systems working in harmony to create something beautiful and unique. The delegation watched, their crystalline features reflecting the dancing lights, as their carefully ordered understanding of technology began to shift. Perhaps, Zyra said slowly, her translator struggling to convey the complex emotions in her voice, there is something to be learned from imperfection after all. 1 month after the Zephyrian delegation's initial visit, Atlas Station had become something unprecedented in the history of human-alien relations, a joint research facility where perfection and practicality worked hand in hand. Raven stood in the newly expanded control center, watching as human and Zephyrian engineers worked together, each learning from the other's approach. Cultural integration at 73% and rising, Atlas reported, its evolved consciousness now serving as a bridge between the two species' different working styles. Zephyrian efficiency protocols adapting to human innovative parameters. Chief Engineer Zyra, who had chosen to remain on the station as the Zephyrian liaison, floated next to Raven in the low-gravity environment they'd created for shared comfort. Her crystalline form shimmered with what Raven had learned to recognize as excitement. "We never imagined this was possible," Zyra admitted, watching as a human engineer showed her Zephyrian colleague how to bypass a failing quantum circuit with a simple mechanical switch. "Our entire philosophy was based on achieving perfection. The idea of embracing imperfection as a path to evolution, it challenges everything we believed." "Sometimes the best innovations come from necessity," Raven replied, pulling up a holographic display of the station's latest performance metrics. "When you can't achieve perfection, you have to get creative. And creativity, it turns out, can take you places perfection never could." The station had become a living testament to that philosophy. The hybrid systems Raven had created had continued to evolve, finding new ways to combine human adaptability with Zephyrian precision. What had started as a salvage operation had become a revolution in cross-species technology. "Incoming transmission from the Zephyrian High Council," Atlas announced. "Priority level, absolute." Raven exchanged glances with Zyra. They'd been waiting for this. After weeks of intense debate, the Council was finally ready to deliver their official position on Atlas Station's status. The holographic projection materialized in the center of the control room, showing the assembled Council in all their crystalline glory. High Administrator Vexthor spoke first, his inner lights pulsing with formal patterns. "After extensive deliberation, the High Council has reached a decision regarding the facility formerly known as Station ZX-927. Raven stood straight, feeling the weight of the moment. This decision would affect more than just one station, it would set a precedent for future human-Zephyrian relations. "The innovations achieved here," Vexthor continued, "have forced us to reconsider our fundamental assumptions about technological advancement. What we once saw as primitive adaptations, we now recognize as evolutionary advantages." The Council's declaration that followed was unprecedented. Atlas Station would be recognized as a new class of installation, a hybrid facility where both human and Zephyrian approaches were considered equally valid. More importantly, they were requesting permission to implement similar hybrid systems in other Zephyrian facilities. "You're asking for our help?" Raven couldn't keep the surprise from her voice. "We are proposing a collaboration," Vexthor corrected, though his tone carried what might have been amusement. "Your species has shown us that there are alternative paths to advancement. Paths we had not considered in our pursuit of perfection." After the transmission ended, Raven walked through the station's corridors, taking in how much had changed. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian technicians, each bringing their own perspective to the challenges at hand. The station hummed with a harmony that came not from perfection, but from the beautiful complexity of different approaches working together. "Atlas," she called out, reaching the observation deck where her journey had begun months ago, "begin recording final project log." The AI responded immediately, its presence now a seamless blend of human intuition and Zephyrian precision. The station's lights dimmed slightly, creating the perfect ambient environment for reflection. When I found this station, it was considered a failure by those who built it, Raven began, watching as distant stars twinkled through the crystalline viewport. They saw its imperfections as flaws that couldn't be fixed. What they didn't understand was that imperfection isn't always a flaw, sometimes it's an opportunity for growth. She touched the nearby wall, feeling the subtle pulse of energy that ran through the hybrid systems. We didn't just fix this station. We helped it become something new, something that neither humans nor Zephyrians could have created alone. And in doing so, we proved that the greatest achievements don't come from pursuing perfection, but from having the courage to try something different. The station's lights pulsed in response, creating patterns that reflected both human creativity and Zephyrian precision. Outside, a new ship was arriving, the first of many that would come to study and learn from what they'd created here. End log, Raven said softly, then smiled. Atlas, what do you think about expanding the engineering bay? I have some new ideas I'd like to try out. Calculating possibilities, the AI responded, its voice carrying traces of both human warmth and Zephyrian clarity. Though I should note that any expansion would be, by definition, imperfect. Good, Raven laughed, already pulling up the design schematics. That's exactly how we like it. In the space around them, Atlas Station continued its orbit, its crystalline spires now pulsing with a light that was neither human nor Zephyrian, but something wonderfully, perfectly imperfect, a beacon of what could be achieved when different worlds came together and dared to evolve.